Hi, my name is Frank Caparino, and the name of this course is Realizing Your Dreams and 6 steps it's going to take to get you there with a franchise. So, but I want to talk about the system that uh, we do at franchise and in general franchise consulting. Um, First of all, let me give you my background. I've been in franchising for 15 years. I owned 8 Cold Stone Creameries at one time. And I just want to talk about regards to how we go through a process and why wouldn't you do this on your own? You know, many people say, well, why do I really need a franchise consultant? Because of the fact, you know, I shop every day. I see the Subways of the world, the McDonald's, the Cold Stone Creameries that I was involved in. There's Menchie's. There's salons like Supercuts, and it goes on and on. Do you actually realize that you spend 50 cents of every one of your dollars? I mean, even if you go to a CVS or something, those are franchises. You're spending 50 cents of every dollar every day, realizing it or not, in a franchise. So it's something that's a big part of everybody's life and our life in the States and now across the world that it's not going to go away, so maybe you should be part of it. Okay, so most people say, well, what does a franchise consultant do for me that I can't really do for myself? Well, there's 3,000 franchises in the United States. So, how are you going to select between them? How are you going to find out? First of all, you're going to have analysis paralysis, so to speak. How are you going to pick through 3,000? I mean, you just can't. So let's say you cut it in half to 1,500. There's no way to see it. Uh, Working with me, are we going to go through the 3,000? No, the same way you can't do it. But what I'm going to do that you won't do, and I want you to learn from my experience. I wrote a book on buying a franchise, 24 steps to beware of before buying. Um, what you really have to do is sort through what you want and not buy the fad. When I bought a Cold Stone Creamery, it was exciting and everybody wanted to be part of it, and they were looking at lines out the door, and they were looking at, this is where I want to be. I'm going to make a fortune. Well, the reality of it is you have to take the time and validate and take the correct franchise that works for your lifestyle, family wise and income wise and hour wise and everything you want to do in life. Because, and where you're coming from with your background. Because if you follow the fad, it might work against you. Um, in the early days with Cold Stone, we were doing well. But a lot of times a franchisor's goals are inversely proportional to your goals. And I'll give you a for instance on that. You want to have an independent business. You want those people lining out the door. You want to make that extra income. You're excited about it. You want to work with your customers coming in and smiling. And Cold Stone was the ultimate. That's why I say you got to watch the businesses that have raving fans. Okay, because of the fact it's easy to say, well, I want to be a part of that and I want to buy into that right now. But you got to look on the back end. Most of the time in a business on the back end, and I know that I've been in my own business now for 26 years, several businesses, 15 years in franchising. On the back end, it has all the other problems of a business and or challenges. Let's say, let's not even make them a problem yet. Okay, you have to hire people. You have to do the hard stuff of firing them sometimes. You have to train them. Uh, and it's if you're in retail, you might have a lower paid force, so they're turning over. Or if they're going to college, then when they're out of college, they're going to quit. On and on and on. So you always, like in fast food retail, about 150% turnover is good. It might go up to 200%. It's just amazing. It's not like in a professional business where you have engineers or accountants and you have a 5% turnover every year. This is, like I say, almost up to 200%. So even though you get a franchise that has raving fans that you've been in and everybody's been talking about, and this is the one you want to go in, you really, it doesn't have the history yet. And when I say the franchisor's position is inversely proportional to yours, what happens is they make their money by selling franchises. So where you have a great little business you just opened in a retail center that was uh, in a very high, good demographics area, income wise, and a good density of population, and your franchisor authorized it, that most of them like to do. Uh, let's do a basic here, okay? When I say franchisor, when you buy a franchise, you're the franchisee, and the person who sells it to you is the franchisor. So, um, what I'm trying what I'm trying to get at about this is that when you go into a business, you really have to see that what's your territory. What a franchisee has to investigate, number one, what are they buying? How big is their territory? And because the franchisor makes his money not only on your gross sales, he takes a 6% of your gross sales. He also makes his money on selling franchises. And when you get what I call the Cold Stones of the world and the Menchies and other places that are developing fast, you just have to be careful that are they in the business of maybe selling franchises and taking up your area. So you don't want people too close to you because of the fact you want to be the person that is making that small business work. You want that extra income coming in. And what happens with a franchise, as soon as they put one too close to you, people go for convenience to the other one. Even if they loved your service, loved your employees, loved what you did for them, they're going to go for convenience and say, wow, look at that. There's another one over here. There's another XYZ brand over here. Let's go over there. So they're going to go for convenience, and with all your excitement, everything you did, you're going to lose the business to somebody else. Now, some franchisors also give you what they call the first right of refusal. Okay, that sounds like a great thing, meaning if they want to put one close to you, you got the first right to say I don't want it, and some or else, because if you don't say in a certain period of time, they're going to give it to somebody else. Okay, so on the first right of refusal, what that gives you is that you're just kind of getting forced to open one that you probably don't want to open one. Like if you get the first right of refusal to open one 3 miles from you, and that's your territory, 3 miles, it's a good territory, but you put one right on the extreme end of it. You rather not have that because people are traveling to you if you're a great brand now more than 3 miles. Well, what's going to happen to you? You're going to say, okay, so great, you got the first right of refusal. If you don't do it in a week or so, they're going to give it to somebody else. Popular brand, everybody wants it. There's a list of names of people want it. So you really now have to expand. You now have to get a loan. You now have to tie up more capital. You now have to increase your fixed costs. You got two rents and you got two overheads and double the liability insurance. Hopefully you negotiated the rent a lot cheaper than the first one, but probably hard to do, especially in California where some of the retail centers, New Jersey, New York's the same thing, are very expensive. So you've now increased your fixed costs. You've now increased where you're looking at two stores and you're probably going to need managers in each, and now you're going up to more the executive level. You have less hands-on, and now you're managing managers, which isn't all that bad because the basic best way, the franchise protocol or model should be managing the business. That's how McDonald's made it famous 50 years ago. Managing the business instead of managing instead of managing, you're managing the business, not managing the product. You know, you're a baker, you start a business, you love to bake, and every day you're in there early in the morning baking, and then you're early in the morning selling it to people, and all day long, and after a while you hate baking. But if you came in and you managed the business and strategically planned on the business and built it to a point where you have everything written down like the franchise protocol model. You have ops manuals, you have training manuals, and then what happens is you now have a franchisable model that other people can run because they just go through the book, and that's what managing the business instead of the product. Okay, so that's what a franchise is going to give you, but I'm just giving you some of the, and that's what a franchise consultant does. They want you to see the pros and cons. The pros and cons is you better look in your franchise disclosure document, and that's what I help you do. Make sure that you know what your protected areas. Plus, the validation, I used that word earlier, the validation process is something we tell you is very important. If you means that when you're deciding on a franchise, you get the option to talk to the franchisees. You want to do that, and you maybe don't want to do 5, maybe you want to do 10. So, and you can ask them, and I, as the franchise consultant, will work with you to ask the correct questions. Okay, how much, how much do you make is one of the questions that you don't ask as soon as you call them up. But let's have a series of questions. Let's say, did you get the training that you said you were going to get from the franchisor? Did the ops manual make it really easy to learn it? Was the training very adequate the 2 weeks you got, or should have been more or less? Um, what do you? Did they pick a correct site for you? Did they help you with the architectural drawings or even selecting an architect? Did they help you with the zoning for your county, or at least give you basic knowledge where you knew to start how to build a retail operation? Uh, but and I talk mostly retail because that was my background. But at FranChoice, we also talk a lot of other stuff. We talk about, as a franchise consultant, we talk about different areas. I will tell you about 5 different areas. There is home-based businesses, which a lot of people are doing today if they're laid off or they don't want to work for somebody anymore or they retired early. Home-based businesses where you don't have much overhead and you're running it out of your home and you have really yourself and maybe one other employee, very small business. It's very enjoyable. You're making the income you want. Then we have 5 categories. The second category we're going to tell you about is home-based business with some outbound sales. So, and sometimes it's B2B, business to business, vice business to consumer, knocking on every door, where you have a home-based business, and what you do with that home-based business is that you make the outbound sales and you try to you know build your customer base and you buy a territory. That's how those franchises usually work. You get a zip code or a couple zip codes or a circle of so many size of the population, depending on how densely populated your city is. Uh, the third kind of business we're talking about that everybody's familiar with all the time is small retail. And retail is where you fall in with the Subways and the ice cream stores and the Baskin Robbins and the Cold Stones and Menchie's and you know uh, Five Guys Burgers, whatever. Usually 1,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet, and small retail. We make that number with by sales, not by size really. We say doing 250,000 a year gross and less. Okay, so and then we go to large retail, which is doing 250,000 and up. Okay, so we're going to have first we have home based business, then we have home based with outbound sales. Then we have small business, retail, small retail, depending on the size of the amount of sales, and then large retail also depending on a large amount of sales. And the fifth category I like to talk about is the master assignment and some area. Some people call it an area developer, and it's the model where you represent a franchise or in a certain area, and you get your business model, or you pay for the population and you buy that area, and then you sell franchises in that area to other franchisees. So the franchisor is ready to do that because he can build his business quickly by doing that, because he's got a step between him, which is looking at a nationwide picture as well as a global picture of developing his brand and developing his amount of his franchisees. He's now selling a territory to another company in between, and they are the ones that are going to sell that area and make a piece of the franchise fee. And going forward, I'm sorry, going forward, they're also going to make a part of the royalties that come off the gross sales. So those are the 5 categories, I'll repeat, that I like to consult people on and give them a category of, we look at the 3,000, we break it down to 5 categories. Then with the categories, we break that down to a small number that will fit the requirements we're going to do by going through all the consulting and so forth. Number one, again, repeating, is the home-based business. And the home-based business is usually one employee or two employees working out of your house. Then home-based business with outbound sales, where maybe you have one employee and you have to make sales calls. You have a territory, but you want to grow the businesses in that area. And the third one is small retail, depending on the amount of sales coming out of that retail and how much it's going to cost you to build out. And that's the small retail model. And then there's the large retail, which is sales of possibly four. I think I incorrectly said before 250,000. I'm going to make the break point of 450,000. So the small retail is up to 450,000 or less. The large retail is 450,000 and above. And you can see that's going from a single product like, you know, an ice cream store, sub shop, hamburger place, to large retail. You're probably going to a full-blown restaurant with a full menu of all kinds of different dinners. And then there's the person who wants to buy an area and then sell that area for the franchisor, and he's called the master developer or the master area franchise. And he works in conjunction with the franchisor and sells franchises, makes a piece of the franchise fee, and also makes a piece of the ongoing royalties. We'll continue this in a 5-part series going forward in part 2. So this is selecting a franchise, and it's part 1. We'll see you in session 2. Thank you very much.